What this is a very teachable moment when you're a head coach. This is a moment where you get to capture the room. This is a moment where you get to get every guy from 1 to 53, and we can argue that Zeke is number 1 to do the right things. Not everyone can run a football like Zeke. Not everyone is 4'4". Not everyone can run for 1,600 yards. But everybody can give effort. Effort can be coached by anyone. And so when you go into this meeting, you have to call Zeke out like he wasn't the 4th pick of the draft, like he wasn't the leading rusher in the NFL last year. You have to make an example out of him. You have to show the film. You have to show the other 10 guys hustling to the ball, and Ezekiel not. This isn't a big deal in the sense of this is something you expect to continue happening. What he had was the loser limp. You know, when you see a cornerback get beat and get beat deep and his ankles hurt or his hamstrings hurt. Zeke, I don't think he quit on his team. I think he was pouting like a baby. And so now you get to teach through Ezekiel the rest of your team. And I think this is the moment that will either turn this season around or turn this team around for Jason Garrett, or he can lose them.
Go ahead, Max.
I think that's a really interesting point. And, you know, I think this is a big deal. I think it's a big deal. And I saw an item on Deadspin this morning talking about the overreaction of the media to Ezekiel Elliott's quitting on that play. Is he going to make a play anyway? It's one play. We've all seen players quit in different ways. You know, Randy Moss was famous for this. Oh, he quit on a play. Randy Moss is, what, 2nd greatest receiver ever, something like that. So, you know, great players can do this and still beat great players. And you know, he had a bad game. Maybe he's frustrated. He's young. Maybe it's a teaching moment, as you said, Ryan. But the reason I think that it is, in fact, a big deal is something I've learned working in the business over almost 20 years now. When I was a kid and I saw this and I saw media, people overreacting, I thought it'd be like, come on. But as I got experience in the industry, what I saw was that the reason the media reacts this way to certain guys is because they hear things. They hear things on background. I brought this up in the previous segment, Stephen A. They gather information. And when enough people hear things about a guy, and by the way, that's corroborated by questionable judgment. Stephen A., you bring up the domestic violence issue he is now embroiled in, and 5 times over the course of a weekend, the cops were called. 5 times. And your point is, whether or not he did it, there's at the very minimum a stupid tax. Why didn't you get yourself out of that situation? At the minimum, poor judgment. He showed up at the weed dispensary. I defended it. Hey, it's no big deal. But again, you can question the judgment. There have been several times with Ezekiel Elliott, more than several already, where you go, what's going on with the judgment? And then enough people say things like they question whether he has his head screwed on right and everything. And as fans, you start to read between the lines and say, okay, there's a reason that the media is reacting a certain way to Ezekiel Elliott quitting on a play that otherwise wouldn't be such a big deal. This did not occur in a vacuum, and I think it is fair at this point for people, whenever something like this happens, to question Ezekiel Elliott's judgment at the least.
Well, questioning his judgment is legit. I don't disagree with that. But I appreciate what the distinction that you dissected, Ryan, where you talked about he didn't quit. He was pouting. This is a guy that's the NFL's leading rusher. This is a guy that when he's on a football field, he makes things happen. Even though Dak Prescott was the offensive rookie of the year, we all know Dak Prescott likely wouldn't have been Dak Prescott if it wasn't for Ezekiel Elliott running the football so effectively behind that offensive line, which we saw this past Sunday, because when Ezekiel Elliott was only rushing for 8 yards, what was Dak able to do? Pretty close to nothing. So we get all of that. But what transpired was this. I'm being stopped today. It's a very, very bad day. And guess what? I'm looking around and suddenly these cats ain't helping me either. He was wrong. There's no defending it. You can't pout like that. You have to be a professional. But you're 21 years of age. You've tasted nothing but success every time you're on a football field. And if we want to sit up there and lament the fact that he was immature and pouty and what have you, let's at least give him credit for consistency. Do we recall when the Ohio State Buckeyes, played, was it against Michigan or Michigan State?
Yep.
And I think it was Michigan. And Urban Meyer did not give that man the ball enough.
Yes,
what did he do? He called out Urban Meyer.
Right.
Urban Meyer, who may be next to Nick Saban, the best coach in college football. Even though Ohio State struggled, they just got spanked by Oklahoma. I know that. Lincoln Riley and the crew handled their business. But the point is, this is Urban Meyer. okay? And this man is a college student. And he sat up there like, give me the damn ball. That's the problem. You made the wrong decision. And what happened? The next week, Urban Meyer, did he bench him? No. Did he punish him? We don't know. But he gave that man the football, and what happened?
Would it be fair to say
I think that brother had over 200 yards or something, if I remember correctly. So all I'm saying, Max, is this. Give the man credit for consistency, because when the man pouts in some kind of way, you take notice. And when you take notice, you say, give him the damn ball, not 9 times.
But here's the reason I think it's a big deal.
And then all of a sudden, it's resolved.